Hey everyone, I'd like to thank everyone for taking the time to approve this invitation to be a part of this workshop. So for those of you who are kind of curious like what this workshop is going to be about, like for the next 30 minutes, I'm basically going to go over some of the beginning actions you would take once you go ahead and start making an account on Nimbella.com, like what you would need to do in order to actually get started deploying code to the cloud. So these are going to be some of the basics, like once you actually make an account. In this presentation, we're going to go over essentially what not only we could do with Nimbella, but also like go over serverless functions and like deploying entire serverless apps. So by the end of this 30-minute session, you should have like all the tools that you need to be able to start deploying code to the cloud. So to start off, go ahead and go to Nimbella.com. So from here at the very top right, you're going to see a little section that'll tell you to sign in or log in. So go ahead and click on that. Now what that's going to do is like, for me, I'm already signed in, but from there, it'll give you an option to either sign in with your GitHub account, or it should give you the ability to like just add in your own personal username and password, whichever way you want to do it, whichever you prefer. Either way, you'll have the ability to, have your GitHub connected. So that's not going to be an issue. But yeah, so once you do that, you need to go ahead and make an account. And from there, you'll need to go into once you sign in for your account, you need to go to your email account to confirm your actual account. You can just click a button on when we send you an email. So the whole process of you make an account and all that should take you up to about maybe 60 seconds. So once you do that, you should be good to go. All right. Oh, and if I'm going too fast or you need me to like re-explain something, definitely post in the comment section. I got it pulled up right now, so I'll be watching that to make sure that like everyone's kind of not confused or anything. So once you go ahead and make an account, you're going to need to do two things. Well, you need to do one thing. You need to go ahead and deploy. You need to go ahead and download the Nimbella CLI. And you'll see the tab right here to the right. Oh, as a matter of fact, let me go ahead and get everything set up real quick. All right. I apologize for that. I thought my screen was being shared. It was a mistake on my end. All right. So at Nobella.com, at this point, I'm assuming you've already went to Nobella.com, made an account, and like you should actually see this page right here. So this is the CLI. It contains like 3 different CLIs. You have one for Windows, Linux, and Mac. So just pick whichever one is actually appropriate for you. Downloading is a matter of just clicking one of these 3 buttons and probably about 2 clicks once the .exe file pops up. That's the process of downloading the CLI will probably take about 1 to 2 minutes. And once you get that, you will be able to start interacting with the cloud. So the actual CLI itself, it's called NIM. And when you go ahead and you download the CLI, NIM is what you'll be using to actually interact with the cloud. And you'll use the NIM to be able to say, hey, I'm talking to Nibella's cloud. I need to send commands. And these commands could be anything from deploying starter projects that we have, creating a template to start adding your own custom code, or just something as simple as saying, hey, I want the URL for a serverless function. So that's good. So we're going to go ahead and let that download in the background while we're doing that. And I'm going to just kind of check to make sure I'm not getting any comments. All right, cool. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is that we're going to go over serverless functions. So a serverless function, for those of you that don't know the difference between like a serverless function and a serverless app. So let me ask you this. Have you ever made a hello world function? In that case, if you've ever made a hello world function, you have the ability to take code and deploy it to the cloud. Because ultimately, serverless functions, when you create them, are really that simple. You literally just write out your code logic, say something for like a hello world function, and you would tell the CLI, hey, take this code logic I created, send it to the cloud, and then give me a URL. And with that URL that you can use that URL to call upon it in your actual app, or you can even comment it in the browser, and you'll be able to extract data from that serverless function. Because maybe you don't necessarily need like an entire full-on application for like whatever it is you're building. Like maybe you just need like basic functionality to return stuff. Serverless functions are a pretty good solution for that. So to get started with serverless functions, we're going to go ahead and take a look at the Nimbella Workbench. So go ahead. So click this link right here, and then click on the Nobella Workbench right here. Let's take a second to load, and I'll move this out the way. All right, good, no comments. All right. So right here, so the Nobella Workbench, I really like this because it's just like a fun little interactive website that you can use to be able to interact with serverless functions. You can not only interact with the serverless functions that are connected to your namespace, but you can also like deploy applications from GitHub using this website itself. So one of the first things you'll want to do is that you'll want to go ahead and click on Action List. Now you probably won't see anything here because you have not maybe made any serverless functions, but Action List lists off all of the serverless functions that are currently connected to your namespace. I have a ton for like different like Hello World functions. I have functions for my chat app. For example, with the chat app that I have ones for deleting messages, deleting users, adding users. And all of this is pure code logic. So to get started, if you want to learn more information, we're going to go ahead and click the Quick Start button. So what the Quick Start is going to do is that it's going to give you a nice little list of all the different things that you can do to give you an idea of like where to start. So for example, let's say I wanted to create a new serverless function, I could just type in a new action name. So let's do that. So we'll type in new, we'll call it webinar. Well, let's call it webinar. It could be really anything. And what this will do is that this will generate the same boilerplate that you can start manipulating code with. All right. So from here, you'll see this code right here. This is like a just very basic JavaScript. It accepts in arguments. It sees that it has like an argument.name, so it'll either be looking for that, and if it doesn't get that, then it just returns hello stranger. So if I just gave it no arguments at all, it would say hello stranger. But if I said, but I passed in the argument with a name like Jamie, it would say hello Jamie. So to do that, let's go ahead and click deploy. So because right now, this code right now, it was created, but it's not been deployed to the cloud. So to deploy it, just click on this deploy button at the top. All right. And so now I want to go ahead and get the URL for this functionality. So to do that, you just need to use nim. So type in nim to call upon the CLI, and type in nim action get, because we just call serverless functions actions get, and then give it the name of the function itself. So webinar minus URL. Okay. So what you've done here is that you've said, give me the CLI. I'm calling on the CLI. I want an action, and the action, and I want you to get the action, which is called webinar. And then when you get it, do minus URL to give me the URL that I can use to interact with that function. So to do that, now the next thing we need to do is you need to copy this command right here, or sorry, this URL right here, paste it into your browser. And as you can see, this functionality is now available. It's live. It can be called on in the browser, and you can take this URL and you can give it to anyone on the internet, and they will be able to interact with this functionality in the exact same way you do. And if you want to see what it's like to pass in arguments, just go to the URL, type in question mark name equals Jamie, or it could be your name or any name. It doesn't really matter. It passes it in. It sends my argument to the cloud where the code is hosted, and then it returns hello, Jamie. And just like that, you have now officially deployed serverless functions to the cloud. So in the span of just like 10 minutes, you've already interacted with the cloud and built functionality for it. Check, make sure good. Okay, can you zoom in a bit, please? Yeah, absolutely. Sorry about that, guys. Yeah, thank you for the comments and letting me know they need to be zoomed in. All right. So just kind of zoom in a little more, just once again, nim action get webinar URL. And all right, and one last little thing I want to show you before we go ahead and leave the workbench itself. This is a neat little thing that I personally like using. This is called the playground. So just click this button, playground at the top, and you should be redirected to it. Okay. So let's say for whatever reason you don't want to have like a bunch of like test functions connected to your namespace. Like maybe you want like a separate little area to experiment and have some fun without cluttering up your namespace, because you don't want to deal with clutter. So this is called the playground. And what's cool about this is that you don't even need a Nimbella account to actually interact with this. Like anyone can jump into the playground and start coding. And this pretty much acts in the exact same way that you would with either calling upon it in your command prompt or calling upon it normally as you would in the workbench itself. So here you have where you put in the parameters. Like for this example, we have an Nimbella. We have the exact same code you dealt with, and we even have an output. So if I wanted to run it, it gives me the output of the body, hello Nimbella. I can change this if I wanted to. And if I wanted to, I could also click publish. This will give me a URL, just like we did before. And it returns the exact same thing. And I can, as previously, I can pass in comments. So this workbench is just a nice little way to kind of experiment with the functionality that you're building and to be able to, kind of get an idea of what it's like to actually code in the cloud. So before I move on to the next thing, I'm going to check. Can we please build a front-end view as well? Can we please do a demo of how to build a front-end as well? Yes, I'm actually moving on to that. So thank you so much for that. Okay, so next thing we're going to do. So at this point, I'm assuming your CLI should be good and you're ready to start deploying code to the cloud. So when you go back to the initial sign-in page that you go to when you make an account, click on Deploy Starter Projects from GitHub. From here, you're going to see several starter projects that you can actually use to start interacting with. So all of these applications right here are instantly available to you to launch to the cloud and deploy. As a matter of fact, I want to give a quick shout out to this one right here if you guys are interested. So we currently have a competition going on right now called Election 2020. So what that is that it's a project to take a pre-made application and manipulate it with an API or just kind of change it in your own way, and you push it to GitHub. And with this, you have the ability to win 2020 bucks. I forget the exact due date. Oh yeah, so winners submissions must be by October 25th. Okay, yeah, so by October 25th, this competition will be over. So if you want a chance to win 2020 bucks, this might be something you want to look into once this workshop is done. But aside from that, let's go ahead and actually deploy an entire application to the cloud. So the really simple one that I want to showcase is the page visit counter. So to do that, just click on this button right here, and that'll copy the command. Now you're going to need to go ahead and go into the command prompt itself to run this. So pull up your command prompt, paste this command right here. Now, to explain this command, like while it's actually running, you're telling the CLI nim, okay, I got a project. I don't have an action. I have an entire project, and I want to deploy that entire project. And then right here is where you put the path of the project. Now, in this example, this project is actually hosted on GitHub. And that's the cool thing about this application, Nimbella, is that you can call upon projects that are on GitHub and deploy them locally and to deploy them to your cloud. And when you do that, you're going to see two things pop up. One, you're going to see, okay, I deployed 2 actions. And in this starter app, I have a counter function and I have a info function. And I'll go into those functions in a minute. But you have you actually sees that you have a front-end web component inside your web folder. From here, you take this URL, copy it, and we'll paste it into the browser. And for me, it says I got 32 visitors because I've shown this to a handful of people. And so what it's also done is that right here, it's actually been able to keep track of when I was able to actually, when I first initially deployed it. So I've been showing this demo app since this particular date. And something I do want to point out, which is really cool, what the significance of this is that this is actually keeping track of the state of both of this application. Even though this is a serverless function and keeping track of how many people have visited and when you initially launched this application, typically with like serverless, in order to actually keep track of that state, you have to go through the process of setting up a ton of different services to be able to keep track of these things. Where with Nimbella, this functionality to keep track of things like this, initially it comes into the platform itself. So what we use is that we use a service called Redis. And when you initially create a template, which we're going to do in a minute here, you instantly get access to call upon Redis to store key value items. So you could actually, inside of your code, just instantly start storing like, hey, how many times did this person visit? Or how many times when did we initially start? And something I do want to show real quick, if I can find it. There we go. So explaining this QR project. Now you can see like this is a front end, and this is it has a front end and a back end. I'm going to go and just check the comments real quick, make sure no one's leaving comments. Okay, perfect. So with the QR project that we have, what's really incredible about this is that all we have are 2 folders inside the main folder for it. We have a web folder, which is keeping track of just one HTML page, which is showcasing the front end. So you have like just a basic white background with our logo. Secondly, we have a packages folder, and that's keeping track of our 2 serverless functions. And that's how simple the code is. At no point are we dealing with any server logic. Do we have to set anything up? Literally, you just said, okay, hey, inside the web folder, make my front end. Inside my packages folder, make the 2 functions, and then inside the web folder, call upon the actions with the URLs that you generate. Like you probably remember the nim action get URL command that we ran. Inside of this code, we have the 2 areas where those URLs are being called. And that is how simple it is to basically make a front-end application that is stateful. So at this point, we have now deployed a demo app to the cloud that is stateful. The last thing we're going to do before the workshop ends is that I'm going to show you the basics of launching your own application and building from scratch. So to do that, I'm going to go ahead, go to the desktop. I'm going to check to make sure there are no questions. All right. So in this section right here, what we're going to do is that we're going to make a template that we can start coding in, and I'll show you just how simple it is to code that. And I'm going to show you how to launch a React app as well, for those of you that deal with React. But overall, like regardless if you use React, like this information should be pretty universal as far as starting with a template and going from there. So to get started, well, first let me go ahead and zoom in so you can actually see the commands that I'm inputting. All right. So to get started, we need to generate a template. So type in nim project create. So that's telling the CLI, I want to create a project. And let's give it the name webinar. Hopefully I don't have a folder already called webinar, and I don't. Awesome. All right. Because it will give you an error if you already have a project called like whatever you want to name it. It'd be like, hey, you already got this project name, so we can't do it. So now we got project. So now we got the webinar project. Let's cd into the folder and take a look at what you get. So in here, you're going to get two folders to start off with. You're going to get a packages folder, which will have a default serverless function, which is the hello function that we were initially interacting with when we first started. And then you would have a web folder. So in the web folder, this right here is actually empty. So there's nothing in it because there's no point in kind of giving you because you don't know you might want to build like a JavaScript front end or a Python front end. It wouldn't make sense to fill anything out with that. So now what I normally like to do when I'm building a React app is the first thing that I would do is that I would delete this folder, and then I would run a npx create React app, and then I would call it web. Now, I'm not going to do that because, as you guys know who deal with React, create React app usually takes a minute to actually deal with. So, but if I was to do that, that's how I would go about it. I would just delete the web folder, npx create React app, and make the web app. And from there, and then what that does is that gives me the template to be able to start coding to the cloud itself. So if I wanted to go ahead and take a look at the serverless function I got, just go into type in cd packages, cd default, go into the default folder, take a look. All right, and then you see you have the hello. So from here, just type in nim action get hello, which is the name of the function, minus URL. And that's how you would call upon it. So I'm going to show you like an actual React app that I have, and I'm going to go ahead and show you how I would deploy it to the cloud. Sure. All right. Okay, so when you're actually coding, this is all going to be pretty straightforward. So here is my React app that I'm dealing with. As you see right here from all I've really done with the boilerplate that you normally get when you run npx create React app, which creates like that general React boilerplate, is that it gives you, gives you the app.js plus like a million other files. And all I did is I ended up like updating this. So I just changed the logo to the nim logo. And right here in Axios, this is where I'm calling on my serverless function for hello. So it says Axios is just run Axios get. It gives you the URL, and then it will do a console.log response. So to actually deploy that, I would just have to type in nim project deploy, and then I give it the name of the project, and this project is called React Starter. So so deploying, it will take about a couple of seconds, so I'm just gonna go ahead and let it do that. But with building a React app specifically, I want to point out two things that you will want to do when building a React app. So in this example, for this, I like to do .include inside of the web folder. Now, what this will do is that this will tell the nim deployer like, hey, only deploy the build files, because unless you do that with like a React app, you're going to deploy like everything, and there's absolutely no need to do that. Secondly, I got like a YAML file outside of the web and packages folder. So like just in the main base folder. So what I like to do in the package folder is that I will put in a bucket strip 1. And that's just like setting up saying like, hey, we got a React app and I want to create a bucket. And a bucket is essentially The front end is just letting it know like, hey, I want to like deal with all the objects for the front end. And here I just say, just because I want to list it off, like it lists off the action. So actions, hello. And this YAML file right here will get it set up to like the, deal with the hello function. All right. And so now what I've done is that after running npm nim action get, and then like the name of the file on the computer, I get the URL, paste it in here. And as you can see, I have now launched a React app to the cloud. So other than that, that is pretty much the entire, pretty much all the basics that you need to be able to start deploying code to the cloud. Now, I know I did like showcase a React app for this situation, for this example, but it doesn't have to be React. We have like a ton of different languages that you can choose from, and you could just do, if you wanted to, you could do just basic JavaScript. It doesn't have to be in React. Like you can do vanilla JavaScript and launch code to the cloud in the exact same way. And if you're curious about like other types of projects that you can use and kind of get an idea of where to start, I would strongly recommend looking at our demo projects to, deploy them to the cloud, experiment, and kind of see like, what is possible, especially with the fact that like, we actually have a lot of applications that are stateful. And I think one of the most straightforward ones that are stateful would be the page visit counter, kind of seeing like how you would call upon the code and, call upon Redis, storing the values into Redis, and then, extracting the values from Redis. So those are really good examples for that. All right, let me just check to make sure there are no last minute questions. Okay, so other than that, so that is the, all right, so we actually got 2 minutes left of this workshop. So that is the entirety of pretty much this workshop itself. I want to thank everyone who stuck around and followed along and added code. If you would like, I would strongly recommend that there has been a glitch with Slack. Okay, that's surprising. Oh, well, what I was going to say is that we have a community that you can join if you have any questions. So Nimbella has teammates from all over the world. We have some teammates in California, New York. A lot of our developers are based in India. We have some in Italy. So we pretty much have 24/7 support with our community Slack channel. So if you are interested in joining our community Slack channel to ask questions, all you'd have to do is go to nimbella.com/Slack. I don't know why that link didn't work when I initially sent it. I believe that there is something wrong with Slack itself. So you guys might want to have to check that later. But that link right there that I just posted in the comment section, that will give you the ability to join our Slack channel. You can ask questions, you can showcase what you're building, and that will be able to help you and we'll be able to help you get started. So other than that, if you guys have any other questions, feel free to email me. I will provide my email in the chat. I am jamie@nimbella.com. So I welcome anyone to message me anytime they want to be able to figure out, ask any kind of questions about getting started, or kind of, maybe get some help on some applications themselves. I personally like to provide like one-on-one support through like video chat if it comes, if that is something that you would find helpful. And other than that, thank you so much for sticking around and being a part of this presentation. I look forward to seeing what types of apps you guys build. Other than that, hope everyone has a good rest of the day.